An illustration. I'm reading a book right now called Soul Survivor. If you write that down, you might want to buy that book. It's by an author by the name of Philip Yancey. And Philip Yancey and Elder Don and I are reading it together, and we're enjoying it, and we're conversing about it as we go through it. Although he has a way of sending me some quotes from books when he reads it that I just like, yeah, anyway. In that book, Yancey decided when he was young. Now, I'm going to tell you, he grew up in a rural church in Georgia. And they were all bigots. Full-on bigots. They did not believe. They had a differentiation in skin color. They were hateful. There were members of their church that were members of the Ku Klux Klan. He was going through all of that. He was raised to be prejudiced, and then God met him in a real way. So he's raised in all of this religion. Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you this. People that are living that kind of lifestyle, I doubt their salvation. Because you can't have that kind of heart and say you have the heart of God. Wake up and smell the coffee. This is what heaven looks like. Look around this room. Look around it. People, people came to my daughter's wedding, right? My brother's dating a stewardess from Ohio. They live in Chicago. A flight attendant. Sorry, old school. And she's African American. My brother's obviously not African American. I think you call that pink. And they came to my daughter's wedding, and she looked around at my daughter's wedding, and she looked around at Susie and I's friends, and she goes, "This is the most diverse wedding I've ever been to in my life." And my brother said, "This is how they live." He said, "This is how they live. They don't look at people like that. They look at people based upon the quality of the person." Isn't that what heaven's going to look like? Huh? So he grows up in this thing. And as he's preparing, and God has done a major transformation in his life, he gets sent on his first assignment to write a biography. I don't even need to look at my notes for this one. Forever tattooed in my soul. And he goes down, and he gets told that he's going to go down. I better look at his name to make sure. That he's going to go down to a guy named C.H. Bland. And he's going to go down to the place where C.H. Bland lives, and he's going to live with C.H. Bland and write a biography about C.H. Bland. C.H. Bland's father was an Englishman that had been a missionary in India, and he had worked with the lepers of India. One day he was sent away to school, and while he was sent away to school, his father died with an infection being around the lepers of India. Now, if I was his son, I probably would have said, "There's one thing in my life I'll never do with my life, and that is I will never get close to the thing that killed my father." But instead, he went to college, and I think he went to Oxford, and then he went on to get his PhD at some of the top schools in the United States. And he was considered one of the most brilliant minds in America, brilliant medical minds in America. He could have went on the circuit and spoke. He could have went to colleges, made millions of dollars. But he chose to be stationed in one of the leper colonies in the South, in rural southern I think it was Arkansas or somewhere in actually Louisiana. And he was stationed there, and C.H. Bland basically was studying how to cure leprosy, which he was very successful at. What is leprosy? Somebody tell me what leprosy is. What is leprosy? We don't even really know much about it anymore, do we? But what is leprosy? Sue? Huh?
I'm not sure. Skin disease?
It's a disease that causes your body to rot. You lose fingers, you lose toes, your nose can fall off. All of these things happen. You literally just melt away and die. And so, it's highly, with that time it was highly contagious. So everything that he did, he had to be very careful about the way that he operated. But Yancey goes down to live with him, and he said, I went down there expecting to see a man that was very serious and very, distraught, living with the lepers. And he said, and that is when I met the man that would teach me that the way you pick a fig is you look for the butterfly to land on the fig. And when the butterfly lands on the fig, that tells you that that's the one that's sweet, and you pick it. He said, this is the man that taught me to see God in everything throughout all nature. And he began to talk to me about the evidence of God and how to see beauty in the midst of the most terrible situations. He said, here is the man living in the leper colony in one of the worst situations, and yet he is one of the most joyful men I have ever met in my life, and he would forever change my life. First world problems. And here is C.H. Bland, and they're talking one day, and C.H. Bland said something to him that was profound. He said, do you know what ultimately causes leprosy? And Yancey said, what was it? And he said, what happens in the body is that the nerve receptors in the body stop allowing the person to feel pain. And because they allow them to stop feeling pain, they'll do things that will break their fingers, and then they'll lose their fingers. They'll scratch their nose, and they won't realize it, and it'll begin to cause an infection. And so what really causes them loss and death in their life is the inability to feel pain. And he looked at Yancey, because he knew Yancey was a Christian author, and he said, this is the problem, is that we as a culture are trying to avoid pain, and we're not realizing the value of pain, and how it is pain that protects us. It is pain that heals us. It is pain that develops us. It is pain. And some of us, we're going through pain, and we say, God, do you not love me as much? Because other people I know aren't going through the stuff I'm going through, but you have me going through pain. Let me say this to you. The one that he loved the very most went through the utmost pain for us. And don't think that pain doesn't have a value, because the fact that you're feeling it means that you aren't callous, that your nerves are working. Now, if you don't feel pain anymore because you're so numb, if you don't allow things to hurt your heart because you've got a callus there, you are dying right now. If you can't feel the regrets of things, you're dying right now. The Bible says in the book of Ephesians that they will be past feeling, giving themselves over to unclean spirits and having no conscience left in them. That means they'll be able to go steal from your house and feel nothing about it. They'll be able to hurt your children and feel nothing about it. A generation of sociopaths. We should be very concerned when we've numbed our heart and not allowed ourselves to feel it anymore. That should be our greatest concern, because that in itself is the definition of spiritual leprosy. Jesus goes up on the Mount of Transfiguration, and he says, hey guys, let me show you who I am. And Peter says, I know who you are, I see who you are. And Jesus says, well, watch this. And for a moment, he steps out of his earthly body, and he shows him his eternal glory. And Peter's like, cool, Jesus! We should build a temple right here. I mean, you're awesome. I mean, let's build something. I mean, this is cool. And Jesus is like, here. And then he hears a voice saying, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. Hear ye him. Look at this. It's happening. And they're walking back down the hill after this. And as they're walking down the hill, a leper comes walking up the hill. And I love this verse. It's one of my very most favorite verses in the whole Bible. It says, and Jesus touched him. There are verses that are so small and so powerful. And this is one of those verses, because in a society where they were considered untouchables, right in front of them, he puts his hand out and he touches them and he heals him. And I want you to know who lives in you. Because the Bible says the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwelleth in you. You have the Spirit of resurrection life dwelling in you. That is why low self-esteem and insecurity does not fit you. That's why apologizing for who you are should not fit you, because you have the Son of the living God, the Spirit of the living God in you, the Spirit of resurrection living in you. Think about what's in you. And you know what the enemy's trying to do, right? He's trying to create a callus and make that a cage, make you a cage instead of a catalyst. See, one of the things I've noticed about myself is because of me being a Christian, having the resurrection life in me, I got to get some of it out. But what I tend to do is I tend to leak it rather than let it flow. Because if I leak it, I don't feel so bad. Because if I let it flow, I know I'll be out of control as God just does what He wants to do through my life. And so we tend to say, well, I don't want to get out of control. I don't want this thing to get like where it's overwhelming to me, so I'll just drip, drip, drip. You're more than that, though, aren't you? Huh? Sissy, you're more than that. You're more than a leaker. You're a flower. You know it. The Spirit of God is in you. The power of God is in you. We're never happy until that gets out of us. Like, I was getting ready to walk in this morning, and someone stopped me at the door to tell me about two musicians. Oh, Gino stops me at the door. He says, there are two people in this world that I love their voice more than anybody else's voice. I said, well, who's that? And he said, Cordell. And he said, I love Cordell's voice. He just makes